Welcome to Professional Learning from the Education Support Team with Amy and Mary. Thank you for joining us as we highlight the importance of vocabulary for student learning and how this can be achieved through effective strategies. We are passionate about student learning and believe that embedded vocabulary can occur through mindfulness. Come join us.
The learning intention for today's presentation is that we, as teachers, learn to understand the importance of teaching vocabulary. We will be successful when we can recognise and understand the three tiers of vocabulary, understand that EALD students may come to school with only 5,000 words in their first language and very few, if any, in English, along with how to embed vocabulary into the classroom learning environment.
So what is vocabulary and why do we need to teach it? Vocabulary is all around us, but we cannot assume that all students acquire language in the same way. The way we speak is not always the way we read. The way we write requires a more sophisticated approach to using language. Let's find out more.
You might be asking yourself, don't we already teach vocabulary?
The first step in addressing vocabulary issues is to recognize that learning vocabulary is not an automatic process. According to Paul Duffy, a respected ESL academic, the teaching of vocabulary is one of the most neglected areas in teaching. Let's begin our discussion with the three tiers of vocabulary. Tiered vocabulary is an organizational framework for categorizing words and suggests implications for instruction.
It consists of 3 different word levels or tiers, and each level has its own implications for instructions. Word levels are based on frequency, complexity, and meaning. As teachers, we know that a robust vocabulary supports reading comprehension and reinforces understanding of new and difficult text. Using a tiered approach to vocabulary instruction assists in the development of language acquisition and promotes a strong foundation for literacy across grade levels and content areas. In this visual representation, you can see Tiered 1 words are the most common, while Tiered 3 words represents the more technical or academic vocabulary. We will briefly touch on each of these tiers and narrow our focus to how we can explicitly teach Tier T words to support students.
Looking at this slide, you can see that Tier 1 words are phonetically easy to read and include common nouns, verbs and adjectives. The examples here such as baby, clock and run are very common words.
This slide identifies the Tier 2 words which are generally high frequency in nature, yet essential to learning growth in all areas of literacy. This is where grammar rules become lenient and explicit instruction becomes necessary. Words such as obvious, complex, informed, and so forth reflect the use of prefixes and suffixes.
Here we have the Tier 3 words which are not used as frequently but are central to building knowledge and conceptual understanding. Looking at some of the examples, one can see that they require explicit instruction, and yes, there are times that even the teacher has to look them up. Try it yourself. Anti-disestablishmentarianism. Yes, I have practiced this one, but struggle to spell it. The teaching of vocabulary needs to be embedded in classroom learning. We need to raise the words to the awareness of students in all classes. It needs to be taught mindfully. This is to deliberately introduce it and encourage its use within the classroom over a period of time and in a variety of contexts. If students come to school with a vocabulary deficit, they can fall further and further behind. Here are some great reasons why teaching Tier 2 vocabulary is important. We need all students to succeed with greater comprehension acquired over time through effective teaching and learning. From this point, this presentation will concentrate on Tier 2 words. Tier 2 words usually have multiple meanings. They are essential for building formal academic language across subject areas. They are necessary for reading comprehension. They are characteristic of a mature language user and have descriptive words that add detail. All these need to be explicitly taught.
Some of the following strategies may be familiar, but all of them can be embedded within the classroom learning. Today we will discuss context clues, finding the definition, visualizing, practice and using vocabulary. Reading logistically rich text allows the children for at least 20 minutes a day, exposes all of them to rich vocabulary. Students need explicit teaching to understand the text models and time to practice their grammar and language through repetition and recycling. Students also need to have access to the vocabulary before comprehension activities are made available.
Word meanings can be constructed from the clues before, within, and after the sentence with the unknown word. There are also cues within the word. The context surrounding an unknown word can help a student understand its structure, how it's used, and ultimately its meaning. A focus on synonyms, descriptions, syntax, and word parts are clues that can support student comprehension in a text. Teachers will have already decided the vocabulary to be introduced. They will engage students in discussion of new vocabulary. A good strategy is to use the word in a variety of ways, drawing attention to the parts. Students can then engage in using dictionaries or a thesaurus to support further understanding. It is important for teachers to unpack the language in order to design language-focused tasks and activities that engage all students. Close activities encourage students to work collaboratively. There are a variety of gap-fill activities students can engage in. Opportunities to practice can incorporate many aspects of literacy, such as synonyms, contrasting in text, understanding descriptions, a grammar focus, looking at examples, and breaking words apart. There will be a few resources at the end of this presentation to help you access and use some of these activities.
Visualization is equally important with vocabulary. Oral language is a key to understanding, especially when guided by the classroom teacher. This is where explicit teaching begins. Students can be helped to link words with pictures. Reading text and targeting vocabulary from these is a great benefit. Morphology can be used to look at the parts of the word. Word walls are also useful, no matter what age the students are. Playing with words or building a classroom culture where words are interesting can be enjoyable too.
Teachers can create opportunities to use sophisticated language with their students in conversations and lessons. Reading linguistically rich texts aloud to children for at least 20 minutes a day exposes all of them to rich vocabulary. Students need to have access to the vocabulary before comprehensible input happens. In this example, the word pale is not recognized and can become an opportunity for discussion in context. As mentioned already, Paul Duffy is a leading expert in teaching of English as a second language, and he wants to encourage educators to take a fresh look at vocabulary. We can do this in so many ways. We can teach all students, including EALD students, to help them grow and learn through discussion, practice, context cues, and many more. This model can help to guide the teaching of new vocabulary. Select a word depending on the reading material. Say the word carefully with students. Take the opportunity to break the word apart and allow for repeated exposure over time. Follow the model, select, explain, explore, consolidate. It's a great way to start. After selecting words to target, explain. There are some strategies to explain vocabulary with students. With this process, students can begin to use the vocabulary in discussion and language activities using repetition and recycling. So first, say the word, write the word, define, provide a definition, demonstrate, and then clarify. Ask students to provide further examples, and you can clarify misconceptions as well.
These resources can be found on the New South Wales Department of Education website. Search for Stage 2 Vocabulary.
And here are some more resources. These align to Stage 3. Of course, you can use both Stage 2 or Stage 3 resources, and both can be found on the New South Wales Department of Education website.
We would like to finalise this presentation with a quote by Theodore Zeus Gazelle, aka Dr. Zeus. We hope you have found this presentation useful, and thank you for listening to Amy and Mary from the Education Support Team. The more that you read, the more things you will know. The more that you learn, the more places you will go.